Hi ladies, so I haven't updated in a while and there's a reason. Baby Adam has arrived and I just wanted to fill you in on the birth story, and then in a little while I will have like a slideshow from when he was born posted. So don't remember where I left off with my vlogs. But I will go back to like week 40 and let you know kind of what happened. So, I hit my due date, which was July 27th. And at that point, I started having NSTs just to make sure everything was all right. And I had an amniotic fluid index ultrasound to make sure the fluid was good. And I wound up having 2 NSTs and then the 1 ultrasound for the fluid. And baby passed both times those tests, and the fluid level was really good. It was like 15. So there were no worries about going past my due date. And on the 23rd, let's see. Okay, we'll skip to the 29th. On July 29th, I had just a regular appointment with my OB, and I think I filled you guys in on this, but that was when I had the amniotic fluid ultrasound, and he was estimated to be 8 pounds and 5 ounces. My fluid level was 15, and they did measure his kidney, and it was 8.8 millimeters. The previous ultrasound, it was 10, so it was getting smaller at that point in time, which was good, and only one of the 2 kidneys was dilated in this ultrasound that I had. In the beginning, when we found the problem, they both were dilated. So one was better, one was getting better. So that was a good sign. And then when I was checked, I was 3 to 4 centimeters. I think 50% effaced and -1 station. And if you know stations, it's like -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and the baby is crowning. So -1's pretty low. And so she did the check, and then she just kind of looked at me, and I was like, do you think we should do a membrane sweep today? And she was like, if you want to. And so I went ahead and asked to have a membrane sweep done. And that's when they go in the cervix, and they go like with their finger around the cervix, and they separate the amniotic fluid bag, the sac of water, from the cervix. And sometimes kind of messing with that can jumpstart some hormones and prostaglandins, and sometimes if your body's ready, it can start labor. And so I had that done, and we went on a 1.5 mile walk that night, and by the next day, I was having like what I would consider bloody show. It was mucus and blood, and it was not brown. It wasn't like old from the sweep the day before. It was like, it was pink and red and bleeding, and I didn't really have contractions that were timeable or anything that day, but definitely I was having show. And then we went on like a 1.5 mile walk, or 1.5 or 2 miles with the kids that night. We did all our walking at night because it's just so hot. We waited until it was cooling down and the sun was going down. And then on Friday, the 31st of July, I had another NST at the hospital, and the baby passed. And in that ultrasound, I was having contractions that were like 10 minutes apart, and a few of them were like you could see well on the monitor, and they were like, you're having some contractions. But they weren't the painful kind, but I did start noticing a pattern of like when I would feel that they were more Braxton Hicks than labor contractions, the tightening. And that was at 3:10 in the afternoon. And so, the day went on. I don't know if I walked. I don't think we went on a walk that day because it was really hot. But that night, around 8:30 on Friday night, on the 31st, I was putting laundry away in my kids' room, and I was just sitting on the ground, like folding and putting clothes on hangers and things like that, and I had one contraction that was like a real contraction, and then not even a few minutes later I had another contraction that was strong, and I thought it was odd because they just came out of nowhere, and then after that for like the next 10 or 15 minutes, nothing. And then I put the kids to bed, and I went downstairs and I started sweeping the kitchen. And this is not like nesting, this is what I do every night at bedtime. So I started sweeping the kitchen floor, and I was just doing, normal sweeping of the floor. And I felt a really strong kick on my left side, and then I felt pop, and then my water broke. So, and I looked at the clock, it was 9:14 p.m. on July 31st. So, yes, my water broke, and I had time, I felt the bag break before, water came out. So I froze in my tracks, and my husband was there. He was, doing the dishes, loading the dishwasher, and I said, go get a towel. I can't move, or it's going to leak everywhere. So he, got a towel and put it on the floor under me, and then, a ton of water came out, which I was shocked at the amount of fluid that I lost because he was so low. I thought for sure we'd have that cork situation going on where, his head's low, and so not too much water would come out, but it was a couple cups of water, I feel like. The towel was heavy when we put it in the wash. Yeah, so that's how it started. And so at that point, I called my doula, and I told her, I said, hey, my water broke, and she was out to dinner with her husband, and she was like, well, what do you want me to do? And I was like, I think we just have some time, I'm not having contractions yet or anything, so I said, I think I'm just going to rest for a little while, but I'll call you if anything changes. And she was like, I'm going to go home and get ready. So she went home and got all her stuff together, and then I rested for probably an hour. And then my husband and I decided, okay, so I called my parents when my water broke. They came and got the kids and took them to their house for the night because it was still early. They were there by 9:30 or so to pick up the kids. And yeah, so the kids weren't there. So my husband and I, we decided to go for a walk, and we started walking, and then my doula came over, and we walked with my doula, and we walked about 1.5 miles to 2 miles, and towards the end of the walk, I had a couple contractions I had to stop through, but they weren't excruciating or anything yet. And so my doula wrote a timeline for me, so I'm going to kind of tell you the times of things from here. So if you see me looking down a lot. So my doula got there at 11:25, and that's when we went on our walk. We walked 1.5 miles with her, and then we were walking before she got there too. And I should tell you, this was the night that my water broke was the night of the blue moon. And a blue moon is when there are 2 full moons in 1 month. And I was joking with my doula and my husband that if I wasn't in labor, I was going to go wave my bare belly at the moon to get something going. But it turns out I didn't have to. But yeah, we were walking, and then I actually, my neighbors were like outside, and we're good friends with them. They were just hanging out, like their kids were sleeping, and they were just outside, and so they were like, "What are you guys doing?" Because we were on a walk, and I said, "It's baby time. My water broke," and we were all like joking and everything. And our kids play soccer together, and they were supposed to have a game in the morning, and I was like, "I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be having a baby." So yeah, so that was fun. And then we got home, and I still was like in denial that like labor was happening. Like I knew I was in labor, but I still thought it was going to be a while at that point, because everything was completely manageable at that time, the pain. And so I made coffee for my husband and I. And before, I think I took one sip of coffee, and I got hit by a contraction that was like, oh, this feels like transition. And it was like, I was having like pretty easy contractions at that point. And then I got hit by this one, and I just like looked at my husband and my doula. I'm like, we need to go now. I said, that was like for real. We need to go. And so we, my doula kind of sat at the table while we were getting our things together to put in the car. Everything was packed. We just had to like load it up, and she was timing them. I didn't know she was, but they were 3 minutes apart. And by 12:40, we were on our way to the hospital. Since it was at night, it took less time to get there than it would have during the day. So we got in the hospital at 1:09 a.m. And I had about 5 contractions from the time we got in the car into the time that we got to the hospital. Then, so it was a full moon, a blue moon, and the hospital was busy. And if you work in a hospital, or especially in birth work, you might think that like the full moon thing is like a joke or something, but a lot of people go into labor during the full moon. And yeah, so they quickly got me to a room because they could see that I was probably in labor. But they only took me to a triage room, and then I just got left there because they were so busy. And I was having serious contractions. And at the peak of them, I felt my body bearing down, and I said, someone needs to get in here and check me because I don't want to have this baby in triage. And so they ran right in and checked me at that point. And I was 5, -2, and 100% effaced. And I guess they did put me on the monitor for 20 minutes. I don't remember that part, but that's what's here. And then everything looked fine. And so they took me to the labor and delivery room. And it was kind of neat because I requested a tub room. And you can only have those if you're going unmedicated, and like you don't have to be continuously monitored. Like if you're on Pitocin, you have to be on the monitor and you can't be in the water. But since I was going naturally and didn't need Pitocin, and the baby looked fine on the 20-minute strip, I was allowed to request a tub room, so I did. And the room that I got was the room I had my daughter in too, so that was kind of neat. Okay, so we got to the room, and they told me that the doctor who was on call, which was not my doctor, but was one of the ones I was fine with delivering, she said I could get in the water, but she wanted me to be 6 before I got in the water. I knew I was 6 at that point because just I know what transition feels like, and I was like, yeah, I'm 6. Can't you just believe me? Because the more checks you get when your water's broken, the higher risk of infection. And so I wanted them to just take my word for it that I was 6, but they wanted to check me before I could get in the water. So they checked me, and I was 6 to 7, baby's down to -1. For some reason, in the earlier part of labor, he was -2, and then he was back to -1. Um, so I was contracting very frequently, every 2 minutes, and they were lasting like a minute and a half. I would say that the contractions didn't ever go away. They would just like peak. They would like go up and down and then right back up and down. There was like the valley of like the waves was very short because they were just like constant. And I went in the tub like right away. And my friend Heather was also there, and so my doula's name is Meg, and my friend's name is Heather, and she was there to take pictures. Heather was. Okay, so by 2:15, I got in the tub, and they had like jets in the tub, so that kind of like felt like massage. And my husband was pouring like cupfuls of water over my back because the bubbles kind of around my belly. And once I got into the tub, my labor like stalled for like 5 minutes, but it felt like an hour because I didn't have a break before that. And then after the pause, after that couple minute break, I got a huge contraction. And at the peak of the contraction, my body was like for real pushing. And I had like 5 contractions that were really strong like that. And my nurse started freaking out. And she was like thinking the baby was going to be born in the tub because she could hear me pushing. And they used the Doppler to like listen to the heart. And the other nurse in the room was like, "You need to call the doctor now." And so that was at 2:15. And then at 2:30, I got out of the tub, and they checked me again. And at this point, my doctor was there already. So in 15 minutes, my doctor got there. And they said I was 8, and 0 station. And I guess my doula said I had my eyes closed, and I said, "No, this is not 8 centimeters." So the nurse had checked me and called me 8, and I was like, "No, I'm not 8. I'm 10. I'm 10." And so the doctor came in and checked me as well and said that there was just a tiny bit of cervix left. So I was really like 9.5 probably, or 10 with a lip of cervix. And so she said when I felt the peak, when I felt like I could push or my body was pushing, she stayed there with like her hand on the cervix and pushed it back, and then that went around the baby's head, and then I was complete. And so that was awesome that she did that because I didn't have to sit and wait for that little lip of cervix that sometimes can be very stubborn. I didn't have to wait for it to go away. It was just my cervix was soft and stretchy enough that they just like pushed it past the baby's head. And then after that, the doctor said, just do what your body tells you and push when you want to push. And I wanted a warm compress on my perineum to help prevent tearing and to keep everything soft. And so the doctor got one, and my husband held it there for me. And then my doula and husband they were each on one side of me, and so they were pushing in on my hips. I had a lot of back labor this time, and it was very intense and a lot more painful than my last natural birth. I really felt like my hips were trying to split apart, and it was very, very painful, and I was very, very vocal this labor. I wasn't like cussing really. I think I did cuss like twice, and I didn't cuss at all in my last labor, but I was like at the peak of the contractions, I was like screaming because it felt like I was being ripped apart. But this is me very freshly from labor. Like in a few weeks, if you ask me, I'll probably have like forgotten some of the pain, but this is like how I remember births. Like if I talk about it close to when it happened, I remember it a lot more painfully than if you ask me in a few weeks from now. Um, but yeah, it was worse than my first labor for sure, pain wise. Um, okay, so I pushed for like 10 minutes, and the baby was like kind of stuck on my pelvic bone. I was pushing like sitting up, um, and my doula, she's been to a lot of births, and she was like, I think if you lean back a little, the baby's head will go right under your pubic bone, and then, your pushing will be more productive, because it's like your pubic bone and like you're pushing. I'll try to get my other hand up here, and the baby's head is just kind of banging into bone, and if you lay back a little, it gives space for the baby to kind of go under the bone instead of into it. So when my doula suggested that, the doctor was like, "Yeah, let's try that." And so we put the head of the bed down a little bit more, and I did end up doing like tug of war with the nurse a few times. Like they just used a towel, and she would pull it, and I would pull it, and that brought the baby down like a lot. And by three, okay, so before 3 o'clock. So he came down and under the pubic bone, and he was crowning, and his head came out, and then his shoulder got stuck. And as a birth worker, I know the protocol for shoulder dystocia, and I've seen it. And when it happens to you and you know it's happening, it's bad, because like a lot of moms don't know what is going on until after, when the doctors like explains what happened. But so what happens, and if you have shoulder dystocia, is you're pushing and you're pushing and you're doing your thing, and all of a sudden you're flat on your back, because they hit this button and the bed goes flat. And yeah, so I was pushing, doing my thing, and all of a sudden I was flat on my back, and I was like, I just yelled out, I was like, no, because like I knew he was stuck. And I worried about him and going past my due date, and I worried about a shoulder dystocia because I knew he was already bigger than my first, and I did not have an easy time delivering him. So he was stuck. But my doctor, instead of using like forceps or anything, she actually like went in there with her hand, because she said there was a lot of room posterior, so he was more anterior in my pelvis. So she was able to go in and grab his shoulder and deliver his arm, and then he turned and the other shoulder came out. So yeah, I've seen that done with forceps. I've never seen a doctor just go in with their hands and deliver the arm, but apparently there was room, and so that's what she decided to do, and it worked very quickly, and he came out very quickly, and he had a tiny bruise on his back, but full mobility on his arm, and nothing was broken, and I ended up with a first-degree tear from the whole situation, which is, nothing compared to what it could have been with the shoulder dystocia. And so at 3 a.m. on the dot, Adam was born. And they actually let me deliver him. So like after his arms were delivered, I reached down and I pulled him up onto my chest, and they delayed the cord clamping, and then I cut the cord, which was really neat. So I took like a pretty active role in the birth, as far as all of that went. And so that was my labor and delivery story. I am happy to say that we decided to go ahead and preventatively treat a hemorrhage, because I did hemorrhage with both my other babies. So after the cord was cut, we decided to start a bag of Pitocin, and that did the trick, and the bleeding was under control from the very beginning. And so that was a relief and made recovery great. It was really great. And so my labor from water breaking until birth was let's see, 9:15. It was like 4.5 hours, but from like the first contraction till birth was 3 hours. So I was 4 centimeters before labor started. So basically, when labor started, it was active labor, quickly into transition, and then he was born. So it was intense and it was quick, and I got all of my preferences for labor and delivery were I got to have everything that I wanted. So that was really good. It was painful and it's fresh in my brain, the pain of it all, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is, right? It's labor. So yeah, overall, I couldn't have asked for anything better. It was really a great experience, and I have my little guy right here. I will show him to you. He's sleeping, so I don't want to wake him up. But here he is. Oh my goodness. Yeah, say hello. This is, oh. I'm passed out. This is baby Adam. Yeah. Oh, are you going to open your eyes? He's very sweet, and he's got all of this hair, and we are still trying to figure out what color it is because, like, some of it is blonde, and some of it is brown, and some of it is strawberry blonde, and my brother is a redhead, and this is exactly what my brother's hair looked like when he was newborn. So I might have a little redheaded baby, I don't know. Yes, you're adorable though. He's so sweet. He's a good boy so far. So he's 6 days old today. My labor actually, my water had just broke at exactly this minute a week ago today. So, yes, it's 9:14. Can you believe it? 1 week ago, exactly, you kicked me and my water broke. And when he was born, he nursed for like the first hour. And I was joking. I was like, he only came out because he was hungry. Like, and he has been like a nursing champ since he was born. Huh. And at nighttime, we've been co-sleeping, so that's been really helpful. But he like my boobs wake me up to feed him before he wakes me up to feed him. He'll go for like 5 or 6 hours, and then I'm like, wake up, dude, and eat. But then during the day, he nurses like almost every hour. He's just really a hungry guy, huh? And so when he was born, he was 8 pounds and 10 ounces and 20 inches long. And they did take us to radiology in the hospital and have his kidneys checked within the first 24 hours. And then they sent that ultrasound to Children's Hospital, and Children's Hospital interpreted it. And the results of that were normal, like everything was normal. So they said sometimes you can't trust the results because newborns can be dehydrated, and so maybe there would be dilation if they weren't dehydrated, but the results so far look like everything is resolved, and we only need to follow up if we want to in 6 months, or if he has any bladder infections, then we would have to go to Children's and see a specialist. But for now, everything looks good, and so we're so thankful for prayers that everything was healed and took care of, itself, and that he was born healthy. And so far, that seems the case, so we are very grateful. Yeah. So that is my labor and delivery story. I can't wait to share the pictures with you. My friend took like 500 pictures, so I'm sorting through them, and I'm trying to figure out what parts I want to share and what parts I don't. Like, there are pictures of everything. My doctor did not tell my photographer to stop taking pictures. So even through the shoulder dystocia, there are pictures, and if I can find a way to edit them, I'll have to. I'm trying to think of what they look like, but like there's one of me pushing, and then like sitting up, and then there's one where I'm flat on my back, and all you can see is my belly. You can't even see my head anymore, and that was when the dystocia was happening, when they put me down, and my head was like, way back behind my belly. So yeah, I have pictures of it all, but I don't know what I'm willing to share, and it'll be a good video still, either way. So I've lost like 25 pounds already in 6 days. So that's good. That's just what happens when I have babies. I think I gained about 50 pounds, but I've dropped 25 of them so far. So yeah, I think breastfeeding helps, and when your baby is almost 9 pounds, that helps too. But I can show you the belly. I'm wearing a dress, so I don't know how well you're going to see anything. I'm also holding him, but we'll see here. I know. Okay. Can you see? It's pretty little, actually, for... And like, if you feel, my uterus is still up to here. So that's still uterus. And that takes a few weeks to go down, but yeah, that's what I have left. This little bump. So that's kind of my birth story and 1 week postpartum update. Yeah, let's see. The only other like wacky thing that's happening is I'm having nerve pain in my left upper thigh, and it's called something, I think it's called, I don't know what it's called, I forget, but basically there's like a pinched nerve in my thigh, and if I bend a certain way, it is like a stabbing pain, and otherwise it's like a tingly pins and needles feeling. I'm really hoping it goes away. I'm hoping... My uterus was always on my right side. It was like way more pushed to my right when he was in there, and I was feeling where it is now, and it's actually more on my left side. So I'm hoping as my uterus shrinks, it'll take pressure off of that nerve, and this weird nerve pain will go away, because it's very annoying and it limits my mobility, like bending over to pick things up. The nerve will fire, and so I have to stop. Or reaching to my right, like if I have to lean with my hips that way, it'll fire, and it's not comfortable. So I'm working with my chiropractor on it, and also trying to wear clothes that don't compress that nerve at all, which is why I have a dress on. And I'm hoping in a week or so that pain is gone, because it's not fun. And I don't really know why it's happening. I've had numbness there since my first pregnancy, but I haven't had the tingling or the pins and needles or the stabbing pain. So that's all new since delivery, and so it's annoying, and I really hope it goes away soon. But that's the only like weird side effect. And then the only other thing I think I wrote down is on the 3rd is when my milk came in. So it was like, he was born on the 1st, so by the 3rd my milk was matured, and yeah, so pretty quickly my milk came in. Hey baby. Yeah, he's a sleepy bear right now. Okay, alright, say bye, Adam. Oh no, he's sad now. Don't cry. Don't cry. Okay, there. Say bye. Are you smushy smush? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to call you a name. Yeah. Oh, baby yawns. Alright guys, thanks for following me on this journey, and I will keep you updated on things as baby Adam grows here and the happenings of our family. But thank you for watching, and I will see you guys later. Bye!